Hi there, welcome back. It's Alan and welcome back to my channel. I'm just giving you a bit of an update on progress with the Greeks and getting ready for Warfare 24. As you've probably seen before, this is my first bolt action army. The last video I gave you a bit of a heads up in terms of progress, some of the colour choices I had made around the uniforms. Just as a quick reminder, most of the figures are done with a brown violet undercoat, which is a Vallejo paint. Excuse me, I just put a little bit of extra light on there. Yeah, it's a Vallejo paint. And then I've gone on top of that with an AK green, which I've spoken about before, so I'm not going to labour the point on that. Got a few mixed in with the MIG paint, which we've spoken about. And as you can see, really we're starting to get a nice bit of colour differentiation between the units. Some of these are still quite shiny, as you can see, from where I put an initial wash on, which I've sort of overpainted. They'll go when I put my normal matte coat on. But things are sort of coalescing a bit now. You might just see to the left hand side of the screen, a couple of little vehicles have appeared, which are tankettes, L335 Italian or of Italian origin tankettes. What I've decided to do now is really sort of get involved in the theme, if you like, or the historical basis for the army. So what I've been doing is doing a bit of research, or a bit more research, I should say, around the 1940 early start of the Greek-Italian War, looking at some of the units involved. So basically, my army is now going to be modelled on the 8th Division, which had a mixture of infantry regiments and EV zones. And what I'm looking at for warfare is basing the army on 3 infantry squads. There'll be three lots of 10. They'll be taking, I'll be mixing in some of the EV zones really, just to sort of get that sort of mixed view in terms of how the divisional structure was organised. I'm thinking at the moment, and I'll show you the army list next time, but I'm thinking of using 2 machine guns, a sniper, an anti-tank rifle, just for fun. You'll see in the background here that I've actually painted the artillery observer, and that was mainly around trying out that soil of Sparta that you've seen before, this kraut cover material. And to be honest, I'm really quite pleased with it. I've stuck a few tufts on just to liven it up, but I think that's really quite good from a historical basis, so I'll be sticking with that. I won't be using the artillery observers. I don't know the rules well enough to sort of cope with that, to be quite frank. Still haven't had my first game yet, but I'm looking at next weekend as being the kickoff. Why have I picked these tankettes? Well, the Greeks did have the Marks III Vickers tanks that I talked about previously. They did have some Bren gun carriers. It's doubtful, in the extreme, that they had any of them for the start of the war against the Italians. They were available later in the war against the German invasion come April the following year. But I thought these were historically known to have been captured by the Greeks and then used against their former enemies. And to be quite honest, I just thought they were a real sort of fun unit to have. They're not going to be any good in great game terms, I suspect, but I sort of got a 3D printed model, stuck a figure in, and I haven't finished obviously painting them. The vehicles themselves, having done a bit more research, were in a dark green and then a stone sort of green over the khaki brown. So again, I've used the same undercoat that I've used for the figures, and that will start to blend in the army a little bit. If I just zoom down a bit as to where we are in terms of progress, you're seeing some of my sort of command group. Let's hopefully get this back in sync. You'll see some of the command units down here when that's better. There we go. Now there's a really nice historical photograph of an officer, a Greek officer, waiting to advance with his pistol in exactly that sort of pose. So that's clearly one of my officers. I'm going to use this priest type figure as an officer, and as I said, try and get as many different elements into the army as possible. So I've got, and you can see here, this is where some of the shine needs to come off. But also down here, I've got my mortar group. So I've got a really eclectic mix of anti-tank guns. I've got 2 of those in the army, a mortar, a couple of machine guns, the anti-tank rifle, the L3 tankettes, some strong infantry groups. So we're really starting to put the army together now. I've started to move some of the figures away that I'm not going to use for the army, on the basis that I haven't got the time, quite frankly, to sort of worry about doing those. So what I'll do on the next update is show you a little bit more progress on the figures, but also talk about the army itself. And I'd be very interested in people's thoughts around how they would put together a similar sort of force. I don't know whether having 3 big units of infantry is worth having. I've looked at other options with a couple of platoons and then sort of reducing some of the support weapons. So there's lots of things to consider. But I'm quite pleased with the painting so far. I'm quite pleased with the variation that I'm getting. I've gone a little bit crazy on some of the shading, so I'm going to have a little look at that, because I don't like things that are overly shaded or too stark. I like them to be sort of blended. But I'm quite pleased that we're getting this sort of mixture of browns and greens being brought in. I've got a lot of the weapons to paint, as you can see, but basically it's really starting to come together now. I think I've probably got about a week to go, so hopefully by the time I talk to you again, this will be done. We'll be having our first practice game, and then we'll be having a little look at how it performs under the version 3 rules. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon.